am a little bit
So
insecure.
don't get embarrassed now. Don't get embarrassed now.
No, we're gonna show it. Don't worry, man. I mean, the only thing I didn't do was turn around and have my zipper undone.
Well, you did kind of get caught with your pants down.
Oh, dude. Yeah. But you know, in all fairness, we'd have to show maybe next week we show the other one because it went better.
Do you have another one videoed?
Mm-hmm.
How about the one with you trying with the teal whistle? Do you have that one?
Yeah. No.
You told me you only had one video.
No. I said I have two. The other one, what's up, Tim, Boyce, Butcher? The other one is of me using my mouth whistle because I didn't have a whistle. No one there had a whistle, so I was whistling my mouth. But the whole,
they all had whistles. They just weren't going to tell you.
Yeah. Plus, it's COVID era, and it's like, who's going to loan me a whistle?
Hey, here you go. The very first two people to hop on here and say hi are Boykin folks. They're here to represent because we're going to talk about the Grand and that once in a millennium thing happened where one of the little brown dogs passed.
Man, everybody's loading up tonight quick.
It's almost like they're excited about the content.
Were y'all like waiting in line? Were y'all 6 feet apart waiting in line for this YouTube video?
Oh, we were actually ready to go several minutes ago. We were just enjoying each other.
That's right. That's right. So tonight we are going to discuss the experience. So 2 weeks ago we discussed preparation for the Grand. And as you guys come in, thanks for joining us. It's really good to see everybody. He went hunting without a whistle. No, I didn't go hunting without a whistle. I went to a hunt test with my dog, and I didn't have a whistle because I left it in my hotel room because I didn't think I was going to get my dog out of his kennel or his crate. So 2 weeks ago, we talked about preparing for the Grand, what Stephen goes through, kind of what to expect, the rules, all those things. Kind of went up and down the ladder with the Grand. And this week, since we were at the Grand, we're going to talk about the experience itself and what happened, how things went. We'll talk about the tests and whatever else Stephen wants to come up with. And then we've got a real comical treat for all of you. I was asked, they needed some test dogs for a few of the tests that I was attending as a photographer, and they asked me to get my dog out and run Tanner as a test dog. And I know there are several of you that suggested that with a good ha 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 at the end, and I actually did it. And now you're going to be able to go ha 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 because that was my very first experience running any kind of a hunt test, and it just happened to be at the freaking Grand.
I've been watching a lot of NCIS, and I can see somebody's taking pictures of you through the reflections in the window panes.
That'd be my brother-in-law. So I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm at my sister.
Didn't mean you see that.
This is my sister Gina. This is my brother-in-law Devin.
How y'all doing?
Good to see you.
This is Stephen Durant. He is one of the fine retriever dog trainers in the world.
Wow.
As we speak, and he's a very good friend of mine. I bought my dog off of him. We've hunted together, and we're building a solid friendship. He's my retriever training coach. I know nothing about this, and he's teaching me and holding my hand through this whole process.
Super cool. Well, didn't mean to mess it up.
Not at all. I just thought it was hilarious. So, overall, what was your opinion of the whole thing? I hate to say all at once, but and when I think about the Grand and I think about what it represents in my mind, I think about there's so many, from the prestige of running it, from the fatigue of preparing for it. I'm sure y'all could see that on my face a couple weeks ago, because I was literally came in from training, sat down at the computer, and it wasn't a day's worth of difficulty that was weighing on my mind. Hey, Hagen, how are you? Glad you got your dog back. The mental stress and strain of all that time, all that preparation, getting ready for this, it was weighing heavy on me. It's kind of like the last few steps of a very, very, very long race. You're ready to get there, you're ready to get done, and you're ready to take a little bit of break. But like I said, it's a family affair, not just with my immediate family, but as Darcy would say, our dog family. There's just so many different facets to the event itself. So what were some of your experiences and what were some of your impressions of the whole thing?
Aside from my test runs, I would say the thing that I noticed the most was how jacked up my dog was in that environment. Even just being in his crate in the back of the pickup, I could hear him. I parked way down the road and I could hear him howling like a wolf at times. And I was like, I know that's my dog. And I know everyone over there wants my dog to be quiet right now, but I can't do anything. But this is something he's a different dog. And then I started looking at other people's dogs going, okay, everybody's dog, not all of them, but I know a lot of these dogs are different dogs. And what is it about an event like that?
Hey,
So,
hey, you got to keep it G-rated, son. Please,
so what is it?
All right.
Hey.
Go. You go. Love you.
What is it about an event, these hunt tests that makes these dogs change or get so jacked up?
Because this is what they were born to do. I mean, it's as close to hunting as you can get. And believe it or not, your dog is this wired hunting, probably even more so. They just have a outlet to express it. They can chase something down. They can run around and let all this energy vent. And they have the opportunity to like I said, just air themselves out. And at these events, they're literally bottled up. They can't get rid of this energy. And for some dogs, it literally just explodes out of them. You can see it in the way they act. You can see it in the way they vocalize. You can just there's so much excitement in the air. There's way more nervous tension that the dogs feed off of as well. But a lot of this stuff is what I would call associative learning. They learn this bad behavior because they're never in that environment, on a regular basis. And then they get there and they get away with a bunch of bad behavior. So the next time, whatever that behavior is, it could be just pulling on a leash. It could be bad bird manners. It could be vocalization. It could be things that you don't see them do in training. And all of a sudden they go to a test and they exhibit these different behaviors. And a lot of that is because it's an associative thing. They associate that atmosphere to those behaviors, and it triggers a different response. And we don't train a dog in that mindset enough, and therefore you see them do things at competitions that you don't see them do anywhere else. They're in a total different mindset.
Totally different. I mean, Tanner's hunted. You brought him to me in January, so he got 4 weeks of hunting in last year at Prairie Rock, and I never even saw that kind of behavior there. I have to tell you, this is one of my Dumb and Dumber moments. I was standing there, just standing there talking to some people at one of the tests, and Tanner's on lead, and we're standing right next to the line, and he's going ape crazy. I'm pulling him back, and I'm going, here, sit, heel, here, sit, heel, and he's going crazy. And this woman, I don't know her name. I'm sure she's probably one of the most famous people in the dog world. She looked at me and she goes, "Boy, sure seems like he wants to get to the line." I said, "Yeah, that's just weird." And she looks at me and she goes, "Why don't you be a good dog owner and take him to the truck, or go down the hill so he can't see the line? Because that's what's the problem. That's your problem right now. You're standing right next to it, and he wants to get up there and go." So that was a learning experience for me. it's like me standing in front of the elevator with the door open, and there's a big line behind me, and everybody's going, "Dude, get on the elevator." And I'm like, my whole excuse was, "Hey man, look, I'm just a photographer, okay? I don't know anything about this stuff."
Wow.
I'm glad I didn't have that on video.
That was great. That was absolutely great. And now everybody's sitting there going, "New guy." I mean, you don't even have to say anything. You could come the most inconspicuous person in the world, and everybody knows who the new person is just because just the mannerisms, stuff like that happens, and it doesn't take long to figure out who hasn't been in the crowd
dude,
very long.
First thing that I got to tell you guys that when they asked me to run Tanner in the first test as a test dog, I started shaking. I was literally really nervous because I knew, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna video this, but I don't really want to do this, and I feel like I'm nervous, and I'm about to get on the stage and speak in front of 500 people. So I get up there, and I'm waiting. I've got my shotgun. I'm waiting on bird number one, and I'm sitting there, and I looked at the judges, like, when is the first bird going to go off? And the guy in the judges tent goes, "Blow your duck call."
Oh, yeah. Here's how we start this big.
Oh, it's endless.
Oh my.
The fun has just begun, people. But one of the things I would
say, you actually got.
What's that?
Go ahead.
One of the things I was impressed with too was the diversity of dog personalities, not just within breeds, because obviously most of the dogs were Labradors, yellow or black. I did see a lot of chocolates running in the flights that I photographed, but the difference in, experience levels, the difference in energy levels, the difference in training levels. And, for the first time, I mean, I've seen a lot of SRS events over the years, but I've never had the knowledge, what limited it is at this point. I've never even had the knowledge that I have now after having 3 months of training with Stephen in this podcast. It was eye-opening to me how different every dog is, and how even, the best dogs can blow up in a relatively easy situation. And I really learned a lot from all that. That was one of the big impressions I took away from the Grand.
Well, and it was kind of like I was talking to one of my assistants yesterday morning, and we were talking about his progression, not the dog's progression, and learning how to teach dogs how to handle. And I'm not a really heavy-handed person when it comes to standing over someone and allowing them to learn. I want them to understand the mechanics, but I believe the greatest teachers in this sport have 4 legs, not 2. And if you're paying attention and you're reading the dogs, if I'm standing there and giving you the answer to every problem as it comes up, then I believe that is inhibiting a trainer's ability to become a better trainer in the long run, because they're not having to figure things out on their own. So trainer had been training and going through some processes, and I went to check up on him, and I was analyzing some of the work. And I said, you're at the point now that you know enough that you can even begin to understand how many things you don't know. There was a lot of things I could teach you for now, because it would have gone so far over your head you wouldn't have even gotten it. And that's what you're starting to figure out is not just what you know, but how much you don't. And that's what that only comes with learning.
Right. The two drills that we've gone over so many times in our homework and podcast discussions that I felt like were so important to me now, and I understand it better, not well, but better than I did, was the tune-up drill and the down the shore blind. And one in the first test, I was at the Garmin water test for 2 days in a row from daylight till dark. And it was the vastness of how important the down the shore blind was at that test was so apparent to me that I was watching the dogs run that blind, and even that I think it was the third mark on the right side down that shore. it just made a huge impression on me as to how important that drill really is. And maybe it was just that test, but I still felt like I could see this applying in almost every situation where there's water, at least.
There's a lot to be said for that, but I would go as far as to say, of all the things that we've talked about, there's really not one thing that's more important than the others. All the stuff that I've given you has a vast application. You're just seeing the most obvious, and because probably it's what you've been drilled on the most. But none of this stuff's been wasted information. It all gives you a valid tool and a valuable tool to work with going forward. So, yeah, I mean, you could definitely see the importance of cheating singles, especially on that down the shore go bird, where a lot of dogs were bailing out and running down the levee. You could definitely see the value of, you're calling it a down the shore blind, but where that blind was a little bit more, had more of a channel blind aspect to it, which a channel blind is nothing but a double down the blind. If you think about it, it's a shoreline on each side. But the other thing that you could really tell, you could tell dogs that didn't see the picture at all on the blind. You could see dogs that saw the picture and chose not to do it, and once they were cast into the channel, saw the picture well, and then you saw the dogs that from the line embraced what they were doing. If they saw it and embraced what they were doing from the start, that was not a difficult line. If they saw the picture, but I said this a long time ago, and it should never ring true more than now, but there's a difference between comprehension and compliance. But they have to comprehend before they can choose compliance. But just because they comprehend, it doesn't mean that they're automatically going to comply. I ran Garmin on day 3. Say that again.
That sounds like human nature during the COVID era. There's a difference between comprehension and compliance.
I think, I ran Garmin on day 3, and I watched my dogs do things that they would not have done on day 1.
Why?
And because that was day 3 of excitement and getting away. Think about, I watched my children play with their cousins, and think to myself, as enjoyable as this family get together is, as enjoyable as this vacation is, I hate the fact I'm going home and discipline my children for the badness that they're getting away with right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so think about how difficult that is after one day as opposed to after 3 days. Long weekend, we were bracing ourselves this morning as Wade was headed off to his first day of school, formal school. He does 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. His first day of school in 2 weeks because they had fall break or whatever it was. And then last week he was with us at the Grand, and we were like, man, 2 weeks away, there's no telling what kind of story we're going to hear when he comes on today. But all that being said, those dogs get excited, and this stuff's aggregate, and they get away with a little cheat or a little creep on day 1, and then it gets worse on day 2 and day 3 and day 4 and so on. So my dogs were a little bit looser on day 3 than they would have been on day 1. But all that, again, was calculated on my part to try to make sure that they were balanced enough to be good at whatever test that they were thrown at. So it was a good, it was a good Grand. It was a well-run Grand, in my opinion. This Grand, I felt like missed and this has been a little different since they have split it up. Once upon a time, there were only 4 flights, and it did not matter if you were scared of the test or scared of the judges. If you wanted to pass the Grand, you had to run under every set of judges and do every test. And now that's a limiting factor, with the volume of dogs that we have, trying to get this done in a timely manner. But it seems like in those old days, there was always this test, that the test that you were lucky to get through, and most likely you were going to give your marginal score in. And it was like, hey, this one test is going to rob you of your freebie, and everything else you got to be perfect on. We really didn't have that as Grand. And that's not necessarily something that was done intentionally. It's just what happened as the way that, everything shakes out. But we didn't have that at this Grand. I felt like that's one reason we had a little bit friendlier pass rate. We were running a Grand where no one had anything else to train for but the Grand. Normally had COVID not been a factor, a lot of us would have run the Master National a few weeks before, and we'd have been getting ready for that. And then we've been switching hats and getting ready for the Grand. So you had a lot of dogs that were super prepared. There's an abundance of factors as to what leads into pass rates, be they good or be they bad. For the most part, we had some really fantastic weather. Go ahead.
So in the Grand, I only got to see 3 different tests because the work I was doing, I didn't get around to see everything. Is the Grand always 3 marks, a blind, and a diversion?
The Grand is always a triple and a blind, and it can have, usually they split it up. Like I think the water test had diversions this time and the land test had honors. So in the Grand, you're going to have 2 diversions. You're going to have 2 honors. They can throw all those in a test if they need to. But they were trying to spread out the workload. So the land test, you ran a triple, a blind, and honor. The water test, you had a triple, a diversion, and a blind. So that was just how they tried to set it up. But that is one of the great things about the Grand, in my opinion. It's kind of, you remember I gave the analogy about the football team saying, hey, we're running right here and there's nothing you can do about it. They don't try to trick you. It's not a bunch of gimmicks. It's a triple, a very hard triple, a very hard blind. They're going to judge it hard, and you got to do the best you can do.
Yeah. So I'm gonna stick my neck out here and say this. I was expecting a much. Okay, let me back up. Not that I was going to go up there and take my dog and get a bunch of pass all these tests with my dog, but I was expecting a more difficult test. Okay, I say that with all due respect to everybody here, the HRC, the Grand, everything, all the dogs that are titled, everything. And I was also expecting a lot less flexibility in the judging of the dogs and what they could get away with. And one of the things that I noticed was when, like, after 100 dogs, ran the same test, there's like these trails through the cover and in the wrong direction or off the line. And I thought, well, that's kind of like, that's suction, and they're letting these dogs get away with that. And I honestly didn't understand how they were judging them and letting them get away with a lot of these things. Well,
Part of what you saw is the test proper that you ran. I hate to say that there were different standards, but you got a different set of judges that have a different view, and that the Grand Committee is not there to try to pigeonhole people into understanding what good dog work is. Whenever you run hundreds of dogs through anything, you're going to get trails. Trails can be a blessing in the right wind, and then they can be the highway to hell when the wind changes. So they give and they take away. That's one of the reasons that you'll usually see folks that want to run water first, because we alternate. If you start on water, you do water, then land, then water, then land. That's typically how you run. And the reason most people want to run water tests at the beginning is they change less. A hard water test is going to be a hard water test. It's going to have fewer trails than a land test, is the thinking behind it. Now, that being said, the kind of cover that you have can dictate that. The kind of water test that you have can dictate that. If you're running through flooded millet, you're obviously going to have different types of trails than if you're running through, a cut bean field that's a lot of open water. So all those things have a factor to play. I'll tell you how I know the Grand did what the Grand was supposed to do. And I obviously, and anybody that knows me knows that I'm coming, when I bring a load of dogs, that I'm coming to pass them all. That is my supreme objective. I lost 4 dogs in this Grand, 3 of them before the upland. I lost a dog in the upland. We're not going to talk about that because that is like my biggest. I don't lose dogs in the fifth series. I don't do it. It is what it is. I probably in all my career have lost less than 5 dogs in the upland. That was a super experienced dog. That's the dog that's about to run the SRS Crown. And that heifer knew when she saw that bird, she was going to get that bird, and I was not going to stop her.
What dog is this?
This is Abby.
Oh, okay.
Abby, she kicked the Grand in the teeth the whole 4 series, and then like her owner says, sometimes Abby likes to break a little. And she's a hunting machine, and she just knew she could get that bird. So Abby broke in the 5th. I don't count that in my stats. But when I look at my other 3 dogs that went out, the other 3 dogs that went out for one reason or another were, I lost one dog that was supposed to be bred that didn't take. She came back in. She had 2 weeks of training. I had another dog that was my bubble dog. That was, if this dog doesn't do well this coming weekend, he's not going. And he went out there 2 weeks before, did great. The other dog I had, which was also, I think the youngest dog on my truck. The 3 dogs that I lost were the youngest, least experienced dogs on my entire truck. That's the Grand doing what the Grand does. What really has me, when I'm really stewing and losing sleep, is when I'm watching, this is a Grand dog with umpteen Grand passes, and it went out. What in the world? Did I do something wrong, or were the tests just that hard? You know, I'm beating myself up and analyzing this stuff forwards and backwards. But when you look at the first 4 series, I had one dog go out on the very last mark of the 4 series. I had one dog went out in the first series that just got fumbled up on the marks. I had another dog that went out in the 3rd series because he had a marginal blind in the 1st series, and he handled on a mark in the 3rd. The long bird on your test, he picked up the middle bird first because there was a bad crosswind, picked up the short bird, came back, and I sent him for the long bird, and he ran right out the end of the pond, took maximum water, went all the way through the pond, got up and looked at the blind pole and ran straight to it. So, and I'm not mad at a young dog that does that because he wasn't 100% sure. He took maximum water, and I didn't even stop him. I let him run all the way to the blind pole and pick it up because I was like, if he's going to make that difficult of a decision, I'm going to let him have a bird for it. So, saying what I was saying there, you may not have seen a lot of dogs get roped. You may not have seen a lot of dogs saying, pick your dog, or judges saying, pick your dog up here, there, and yonder. But what that test was doing was robbing all these dogs of their marginal score. There was a lot of dogs leaving with 1s on day 1, on day 2, and they've got to go past 2, 3 other series in order to get to the 5th. And if they're running in a marginal pace, if anything else happens, if there's another bobble, they're out. So you may not have seen a lot of pickups, but you saw a lot of dogs lose, you know, their perfect score on your test, and they got caught up on the next series. If you'd have been there for day 3 and day 4, you'd have seen a lot of dogs pointing out that were coming to that test that had marginal scores that, you know, ended up not making through because they got 1s again. So they definitely let the dogs hunt on your test. I would not argue that at all. And if I got to choose between a judge letting them hunt too much and a judge being too quick to tell them to put them on the bird, I'll always take a little bit more hunt. But they judged it fair. They judged it consistently, which is one of the hardest things to do when the weather changes, when factors change, when daylight fades, when the unexpected happens. They were more than fair on making sure that the dogs got the benefit of the doubt. And that's what we've been clamoring for years, is that kind of mentality. So I felt like your test was a really good one. And what you didn't get to see while you were in the tent were all the things that the different people were doing. At one point, Wade had all the chairs lined up and had made a school bus, and everybody in the gallery was having to ride the school bus. And I mean, just the time Levi got pushed face first off the hay bales because they were running across top of the hay bales, and Wade had enough of him. And there were times that my daughter disappeared. You know, her Uncle Robbie and Aunt Glenda, that she knows no other way other than that's her aunt and uncle. Although we're not blood kin, that means no difference to her. she would disappear with them. They'd go, to the store or play. I mean, just it's so fun to watch the interactions in the gallery, the we're all in this together mindset. It's fun to be a part of, and it was a really fun time in Kentucky this last year.
Definitely a family affair, in more ways than one, like you said before. Definitely a lot of camaraderie, a lot of support from, one trainer to the next, or one trainer's wife to the next trainer's wife. And I definitely, it's its own culture and its own little world. And I definitely would appreciate that. I mean, y'all are different people, man. and you're dog people, for sure. You're dog people. And I noticed, when dogs that were probably expected to do better, they did, particularly in the first series that they ran on the day one, where handlers would get upset and maybe blow their temper a bit and call their dog in, even if it was get in here. Judges were really quick to say, hey, easy. There's the dogs come first there. And I was really impressed with that as well.
It's definitely a special time. It's a special group of people, and it's neat that it happens in so many different places.
How many dogs were there? How many retrievers were there?
Oh my gosh, it was like 750-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood.
That's the most loud I've ever been around at one time.
It was, and I mean, there was some really neat stuff. I got the title my first Chesapeake, and I didn't realize how rare that was. That was only the 16th Chesapeake to ever be a Grand Hunt Retriever champion.
The 16th?
And she was 16th.
Wow.
And I had no idea till it was.
I would have lost money on that bet. I used to.
Yeah, I mean, that was.
And I had a Chesapeake. He was never titled, but he could definitely beat your dog up. My dog could beat your dog for years.
We've got that. The Francie is the dog who titled. We've got her son in training right now, and he was running a setup today, and one of the guys who was there said, "I have never seen a Chesapeake so athletic in my life. He thinks he's a sprinter. I mean, he is big, strong, but he goes hard."
Where's he from? Where's he out of? Do you know?
Florida. I know that Francie came out of. She was like 20-year-old frozen semen. It's some crazy breeding. I mean, it's a neat thing. That was Caroline and her family have been a blessing to us. It's been a neat. I met Francie with Caroline's husband before I ever met her, and he was a pretty cool dude, and he was walking the dog around on a lead, and I forget why we even started talking, but he was just he mumbled under his breath a lot, and he said, "This is my wife's dog." He said, "She won't let me run this dog. She thinks I'm going to mess her up." And the more he talked, the more I realized I don't know this lady. She's probably pretty smart. Kenny was a cool guy, but I mean, it's just neat how the different people come into your life that you never anticipate, being a part of it, and we all help each other in different ways. I had a lot of fun. That this was the first Grand that I had a bunch of new clients running their dogs. Miss Caroline was running another dog who owns Francie. Melissa Grant was running her dog for the very first time. Mr. Lynn Holman, who's at the kennel every day, was running his dog for the first time. I'm sure there are others, but those are the people that jumped off at the top of my head. I've got my age-old training group of the Grizzly veterans that know what the Grand is and know what to expect. But I had a bunch of first-timers, and that was a neat experience as well, watching them go through the steps. And they had varying degrees of success, but it's always a success when you make it through any series at the Grand.
One of the experiences I had in the first test that really left another impression on me was it Mr. Autry that has the electronic beeper. He had throat cancer.
Mhm.
Is that correct? And
He's had all different types. Yep.
yeah, and the fact that he loved you could just, I mean, I almost got choked up after I was told who he was and what he was doing, how he was doing it, and he had this automatic whistle and it had a duck call sound on it, and he was using that as his audio device to to blow whistles and all that stuff. And I felt like, man, this is like this is like the last thing he'll ever do in his life. He loves these dogs so much. He loves this game and all these people so much that there's probably nothing more important to him, or he wouldn't be out here doing it the way that he does. I mean, he adjusted his entire life to running dogs.
I wouldn't disagree with anything you say there, but at the same time, if he took up skydiving tomorrow, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, he is the definition of stick-to-itiveness and just tough.
How old is he? 80?
If he's not, he's close. He just, like you said, dogs are his life. That's what he's chosen to make his life. But you think the vast majority of people that have endured what he's endured and what you saw was just the very tip of the iceberg. Most people would lay down and just quit. And that's not what, the day he quits doing is the day he dies. And he knows that, and he'd tell you that. But he's one of those iconic figures in our sport that everybody respects, not just for the dogs that he's done in the past. His record was who Dude and I were chasing, by the way. It was Mr. Bill and Cody that had the HRC grand record for the most passes. I was chasing him the majority of the beginning of my career. That was just it was a humbling experience to catch up to him. It's something that he and I share, as far as nobody else knows how hard it is to get to that level. But he is a cool dude, and and there's so many different stories you could tell. But the fact that he gets up and does it like that every day, I look at folks like him and go, man, if I got half that much want to when I'm that age, I'll be all right.
Well, I just hope I'm half the man he is when I'm his age.
He's something else. He is the definition of tough.
He really is. Looking back at his career, not so much specifically at his career, but knowing he's been doing it for a long time, and this has been going on for how many decades? How old is the HR? How old is the Grand? Did we talk about this?
I want to say first Grand maybe in like the late 80s, early 90s.
Okay, okay, and then even further back, when did Omar Driscoll was the founder of the HRC, right?
Correct. That is correct.
And that was in what? Was that 1954?
No, that was like 1985.
Oh, 85. Okay. I don't know where I got 1954. I just made that up.
Well, you got to understand how it came about, as far as, a lot of what field trials of yesteryear look a lot like the hunt tests of today. Mm-hmm. And field trials got longer. They got more out of touch. Field trials originally were hunters, and you go to a field trial now and it looks nothing like hunting, not even close to resembling it. And it just kept growing and evolving. And then you had the hardcore hunters that wanted it to be a hunting type deal. And I believe, and I can't tell you or count the story all bit by bit, but AKC hunt test started getting a little bit out of touch with what a lot of real hunters thought hunting should be. And so HRC was kind of a spinoff of AKC hunt test. NARA was another organization that was very strong at the time, and they were all kind of jockeying to find their place in the world. And HRC, that's why if you look on the back of every entry card, every identification card for every dog, it said conceived by hunters for hunters. They are very big about keeping the hunt and the appearance of hunting in the hunt test, which is why they want you to have camo on why they want you to maintain as realistic a hunting scenario as they possibly can.
I watched the interview that Shannon Nardi did with Omar Driscoll about, originating the HRC and why he did it. And I remember him talking about, these field trial people are different, and I don't really want to be around these kind of people. I just want to have a good hunting dog, and I want to have a set of standards that's level across the board for people to have a set of parameters to train by, so that when they're done, if they have a dog at a certain level, they all go through they reach the same standards. And I remember thinking, that's what this is. And I remember sitting at the Grand this year in that photographer's tent, thinking about that interview and Omar Driscoll and how far this is coming. So my question would be to you, what was it like, 25 years ago? What's the difference between an HRC Grand, besides the number of dogs and the number of flights? What's the difference between 1986 in Louisiana, the first Grand, and the 2020 Grand in Paducah, Kentucky?
Well, there's been a lot of changes as far as, for one, the Upland used to be the third series, which I can't conceive how difficult that would be, to go from doing the high level retriever and then go do Upland where the dogs get to run wild, and then turn around and try to get them to be back under control to do 2 more retriever tests, the third, the fourth, and the fifth series.
See, that seems like the ultimate test.
And the tests were a little bit more varied. They had a lot more gimmicks and tricks. They used to throw live flyers that were shackled. So a shackled bird, which, it could flap a little bit, but it couldn't go too far. So you actually had live birds being thrown. You had a different point system. We talked about in depth about how you've got 1s, 2s, and 0s at the Grand, and that's all you can get. Once upon a time, there used to be a 3 as well. For a really good score, you could get a 3. And this was all before my time. So I'm not going to pretend to know all the ins and outs and how much it's changed. What I can say about the Grand, since I have been running it, and I think I have run every Grand since the spring of 2008. So for the last 12 years, 12 plus years, whatever you want to call it, I have always seen a triple and a blind. And I have seen some differences in the hierarchy and the dynamic of what the Grand standard is, but it's been much more consistent now than it was back in the beginning. First Grand was in 1986. I was 3. So this has been around literally my entire life, and I just got really introduced to it, in proper when I graduated college in 2005. So what I like about the Grand so much is its consistency.
You just made me feel really old.
Me too.
There's not a person that I meet that doesn't go, I cannot believe Jake is 51 years old.
Did you just say that?
I did.
I know. I can't believe I'm 51 years old. What was, I mean, is this a fair question to ask you? What was the, most impressionable thing you took away from the Grand this year?
Probably one of my favorite memories was watching Walker play on the floor with the kids.
Uh-huh.
I mean, really, I probably won't forget that. I won't forget Abby's rotting behind breaking in the 5th series and why she did it, and what I could have done differently to maybe get her around that. Nothing that I could have done in that moment, but things that I will do next time with that particular dog in that particular situation again. I'll handle it differently, and she'll pass. Even though she wants to break, she'll pass because I know how to make her pass. Those are the things that really stick with me. the failures and knowing how to be a better dog handler are always what I learn from, and the experiences with friends and family and watching dogs, succeed. We had another first that happened right after you left. We actually had a competitor pass away who was running, and that was
I was there.
devastating. You were there,
He
Mr.
was
Dave Chandler passed away.
supposed to run that Garmin test the day that he passed.
That's right. That's exactly right. So that was a new experience, not one that I really like to relive, because I didn't have the pleasure of knowing Dave personally, but he was obviously a fantastic guy for, seeing the reaction of so many people who cared so much for him. And again, that goes back to the dog family that I referenced, and how even if you don't know this person, personally, that they're a part of this family, and that inherently says that there are certain characteristics that they have and hold dear, and that you could call on them in a time of need. So that was something that I hope we never relive. There were several firsts, but what else could you expect from 2020, right?
Hey, oh yeah, exactly. And when the announcement came that he had passed, again, another impressionable thing that happened was they stopped the test, and it was late in the afternoon. They probably could have ran maybe 2 or 3 more dogs, but they just stopped the test. Everybody gathered, walked over to the gallery, and everyone gathered, and someone said a prayer for him and his family. And I would say 40% of the people in that crowd at the prayer walked away in tears, and that left a huge impression. No, it was very quiet. And that left a huge impression again on me about how much of a family gathering that really is. And like you said, probably a lot of those people didn't know who he was, but it affected everybody in a profound way. It was really interesting. I mean, I'm sorry that happened, but it was a really impressionable event for sure.
His dog actually passed too. Mr. Barry kept running his dog, and she passed. So that was a cool thing too.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. Oh my God. Do we have to watch this video?
I don't know if we can put it off anymore, Jake.
I'm trying to figure out, we got 56 minutes into this thing, and we could talk for about 19 more minutes and then just be like, hey man, sorry, we didn't have enough time to get to this video, but.
Well, we probably have to cut it off anyway, because this is going to be way too much information.
Okay.
Ready, dude.
Okay, I'm going to great. It's now that we got all these people in here watching this. So again, somebody said, hey man, does anyone have a test dog? And I don't know who it was, but someone pointed at me and said he's got a dog in the back of his truck. And I was looking around and I was like, oh, you talking about me?
I will say this now. This is something you have got to experience, something that I have not, and that is the preparation, the actual setup part of the Grand. I've never been a part of, because they kind of frown upon competitors being a part of that, right? So it was a neat thing. You've got to see a whole different part of it that I haven't experienced. So congratulations.
Jamie Moss. If you have to know, it was the banded. Okay. And I don't know what that LOL is all about. No, I'm kidding. He was there. And it is the banded water test. And I've never run an HRC test in my life. Didn't even know what a diversion was. I mean, they said, okay, this is going to be a triple with a mark and a diversion. I said, well, what's a diversion?
Yeah.
Everybody got a really good laugh out of me, and I don't really care. I mean, I do, but I don't. But I'm going to pull this up, and we're going to watch this. All right.
While you're talking, Jake, the first Grand had 14 dogs enter, 4 passed. 23 enter and 5 passed.
Wow.
They have been, I'm looking down, 1989 had 58 dogs enter, 5 passed.
Hold on. Let's hold on. Let's back up to the first one in 1986. There were 14 dogs, 4 passed, and then in 2020 there were 729 dogs. How many passed?
You got it.
How many?
There were, I think it was a 33% pass rate. It was like 250, about somewhere in the 250s.
A 32% pass rate.
And see, that was what everybody would tell you is a kind, gentle grand. That was not. Here's the numbers that really get your attention. 1990, 78 entered, 3 passed. 71 entered, 5 passed. I mean, this is not, when I told you that being a pro running the grand is planning for failure. 1994, 102 entered, 7 passed.
Wow.
Let me skip up here to when I started running.
That's a 7. That's basically a 6% pass rate.
So the first grand that I ever ran was in 2008 in the spring. I've never seen this. This is kind of cool. Spring of 2008, 329 dogs entered, 86 passed. 384 were the fall.
I got a question, okay? And I think I got about 15 more minutes to kill before we could call this show if we really needed to. But what do you think? What do you think attributes? I mean, I know there's a lot of answers, and I could probably help contribute to the answer to this question too, because of the SRS and digital media, visual content, all that stuff. But what has been the most contributing factor that has taken the grand? I mean, you think about the grand, that's one thing, but then you think about all the dogs. Like everybody I know is a dog trainer now, all of a sudden.
Oh, yeah.
And what has been the primary reason for the popularity of retriever training at a higher level? I mean, everybody's doing it. What's up with that?
I think there's a lot of contributing factors. I think the explosion and popularity of duck hunting, much to the chagrin of hardcore duck hunters. Just the fact that duck hunting has got so much more popular. One of the biggest disappointments I've had in the last 10 or 15 years was when the Duck Commander stuff came out, because I don't know if you watched the stuff before, but they had a thing called the Duck Men, that these videos that they made for many years that were about hunting. Man, that was some real stuff. And I was like, if they're coming out with this stuff on national TV, this is about to be amazing. And then it turned into that slapstick comedy bull jive that it turned into. And then everybody was a duck hunter, and everybody had a dog. And I'm like, I really debated with myself, is this a good thing for outdoorsmen? And what I ended up arriving at was that if this helps mainstream hunting to the normal population, to everyday people, you're not going to be around duck hunting very long before it leads you to a dog. And if it leads you to a dog and you get as addicted
Stephen.
It wasn't me, Jake. Are you there? Waiting on you, Jake.
Oh, there you go. Did I freeze or did you freeze?
I think I froze first, and then you were gone. Are we back now?
Nope, I got 1 bar. I got 2 bars. Okay, go.
Okay. I was saying, if hunting eventually brings you to a dog and you get as addicted to it as a lot of people do, then it'll eventually lead you to somebody like me. And so, do I think Duck Dynasty and that crew probably contributed to some of it too? Yeah. But I think just the mainstreaming of duck hunting in general, and then it leads you to this whole different subculture of dog people that, if you don't know about it, then you don't know it exists. But when you find out about it, it's not unlike like a motorcycle club or anything else. You just, you get head over heels into it, and then before you know it, that's what all your time is spent around doing this hobby.
I mean, working with the UKC now, having been to the world or the national championship coonhound deal. I was going to go to the World Beagle Championship, and Shannon's got me lined up for a bunch of these world-class UKC events. And you show up, and it's a different culture. They're still dog people. They still handle their dogs the same way. They still travel with their dogs the same way, and it's freaking cool, man, that there's so many dog people out there. I just think it's neater than heck, man. I really do.
Well, what's neat to me is the thought that when my children get older and they're, doing whatever children do and traveling across the country, doing whatever, that there's nowhere east of the Rockies that they could break down that I couldn't call somebody that would be there to help them. That is such a neat thing to me, that, how you just develop such a network that stretches so far. And, everybody says the world's a small place, and it's such a big place, but it's such a small place. But when you start talking about the network in this, my in-laws, I'll never forget Kendra telling me about my in-laws being floored because they were riding down the interstate, and Kendra saw a truck with a dog box in the back, and she said, "Oh, that's so-and-so, because that's their truck and that's their box." And they're like, all those boxes look the same. And Kendra's like, "No, they don't." And I can tell you all the different nuances. So,
right. Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. Someone said something. Oh, yeah, Mr. Jamie Moss said we enjoyed meeting Tanner at the Grand. I don't take this the wrong way, anybody, but I was impressed with the number of people that came up to me, and they didn't say, "Hey, are you Jake?" They said, "Hey, is that Tanner?" And they recognized Tanner.
And that's not an insult. That's how they value. Do you know how many times it happens? And I'm so embarrassed in a conversation that someone will come up and they'll introduce themselves and they'll mention their dog's name. And 3 sentences into the conversation, I realize that I know your dog's name, but I do not know who you are.
Oh, that's how it was. Like, "Oh, is that Tanner?" And you're Jake. It's Jake.
That guy with a funny last name.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And it was actually, it was a bit telling about, how many people come on here and watch this. And that was something I was, I had lots of embarrassing moments there, and that was something I was pretty proud of. It's pretty cool. Y'all want to watch this?
Well, my wife, she's sitting up. She said, "I'm staying up for this. You got to play
it." Okay. This is for your entertainment value.
As your brother-in-law comes into the screen, I love it.
He ain't gonna miss it.
I gotta have
it. Here comes my sister.
We're going through the gun and everything.
Yep. Left, right, middle.
You have no idea how nervous I was at this point.
Is it buffering? Is that why it's going slow?
I don't know. Is it? It's going full speed on my end.
Back it up a little bit, because it's really choppy on mine. Maybe you can catch up and it'll smooth out. We don't want to miss any of this goal.
No, we don't. No, we don't. Is it playing now?
It's playing. It's just a little bit. There it goes. That's better. Now you see how Tanner's trying to get ahead of you as soon as you sit down?
I'm just glad he's sitting there. I think he whined out.
All right, hit pause real quick. All right, so there's a couple things going on. I mean, I know you were overwhelmed and trying to figure out which way to load a shotgun shell and all that good stuff. But there was a lot of things going on when it comes to the dog. Did you see how when he came down and got on the platform, how he was trying to get ahead of you right there? Mm-hmm. And it looked totally innocent, but it was everything that it wasn't innocent, because remember I said that dogs are linear animals. You're either leading or you're following. Tanner's trying his best to lead you right there. He's trying his best to get ahead of you and say, I'm the one that's in charge. That whining, some people say that's just whining out of excitement. If that kind of thing gets out of hand, it actually turns into the dog thinking that the whining is what's making the bird start to fall. So we talked about this too when it came to duck calling and the volume of duck calls and how that it can affect their ears and this, that, and the other. But one thing to pay attention to right here is pay all the tiny little things that you're looking at the whole. Look at the parts. The fact that he's trying to be ahead of you is also what leads him to start to whine, because when you backed him up, he's like, oh my gosh, I got to get this thing going. And he thinks he's calling the ducks. So all these little things, they all contribute. Every little component here is important for you. Like I said,
I got 4.
like a forensic account of what your dog's behavior is. All right, you froze. You back?
Yeah, you're back now.
Okay. I was like, this is a forensic account of your dog's behavior. So you're snapping at him and you're begging him to back up. Go ahead and let's hit play and
Well, I want to say something about that because not that, but y'all just have to understand too that I can't even imagine what Tanner would have been like had I not had a collar on him. I had his e-collar on at the Grand.
Good Lord.
And
that was good. You needed it. You definitely did.
So I had that sucker in my hand too, buddy. Oh, this is good. This is good, even though it's not good. Look, here's where I go. When's the first bird gonna go off?
One call.
Oh yeah, that. Yeah, let's play a duck call.
That's not my duck call, by the way.
Oh my gosh. So which way? Stop. Hit pause.
Oh my God.
So which way are the birds coming out here? What is this?
Okay, so it's left, right, middle.
I mean, do you realize what you did to him when you pointed him so far left and then you turned right and swung your chair right and you duck called? I mean, he has no chance to have a stable base. He's got to move at that point. So you're starting to test with his feet moving. That is a recipe for creeping and disaster.
Tanner's like, I mean, we're up there and Tanner's like, oh my God, I cannot wait till they see this video.
So one thing to remember when you're shooting the birds, the more still you are, the more still he's going to be. He's using that left leg that he's sitting beside as a defining element. And when that defining element is moving, so is he. So that's why I shoot both-handed. So if I was going to shoot this setup, I would have pointed Tanner up the middle a little bit more. I'd have shot the left bird right-handed. I'd have shot the right bird left-handed. And the middle bird left-handed, because I would be able to I could point and then switch shoulders and never move myself. And not allowing myself to move is going to help my dog stay more steady. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so when you cycle through your shots, do you eject and then move? And when you point,
my system, my dogs understand that when I open the gun, that means that we're switching. And when I close the gun, that means something's coming. So if I was switching shoulders, I'd shoot, I'd open, leave the gun open, flip shoulders, and close with my other hand, so that they understand open means we're moving and close means it's coming. So that's just an observation.
Is that all it is?
Oh boy. Well, hold on, you got it. It's double timed here.
Okay.
So like,
Whoops.
yeah, see, your shots are way ahead of your video.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
Dadgummit. I don't know. It's real time on my end.
There's just okay, that's good. Let me see it. Keep playing. There's two. Tanner's out in front of you. If you weren't on a platform, he'd have never been there.
He never saw it.
Nails hanging off the end. Didn't see the last bird because he wasn't working with you. Is that correct?
Correct.
So he saw 2 marks and missed one, and then he broke, and then you burned him. Good job.
So they're already sending me back to the truck at this point, right?
Oh yeah, you're done. Go to the house. Tanner said, "Hallelujah."
Exactly what he said. He just kept running.
Missed the bird and everything, huh? Bye, Felicia. Oh, coming back. Got it right there?
What?
Does he have it now?
Yeah, he's got it. I don't know where we are. Is it buffering?
He's picking up the right-hand bird and coming back is what I see. The go bird.
So you want me to send them after the middle or the
Oh
left?
yeah, we'll get to that, Steve. Don't worry about that.
Here. Sit.
Now, hit pause real quick. This is something that I pointed out to you in hunting, and now it's manifesting itself here. Did you see how when he came back, you wanted to put the bird on the ground and mouth it before he gave it to you?
Hang on, let me go back to that spot. Okay.
All right, when he comes in to deliver it, watch what he does.
Okay.
This is really big for you.
Sit.
See how he's got it on the ground, and then he picks it up? That's not because he didn't have a good grip on it. That is because that's Tanner's MO. And you really have to watch that with him because that's Tanner taking Tanner's time. That's when you hear Nick hear. That's when you sit Nick sit in a hunting situation as well, because that's him beginning to possess the bird. And that's it gets worse as we go. But that's not an innocent behavior. That's not an accident. That's Tanner plotting and planning. If you remember, one of the things that I said that would prevent Tanner from being a competitive dog is bird manners and his possession of the bird. And that was the beginning of it right there. All right, go ahead for your next mark.
No, here. Sit.
Watch me throw that bird in the dirt.
Now there's worse things that could happen. I mean, it's not ideal, but in the grand scheme of what's happened so far, that's not the worst thing. Oh, now I'm getting in the book. There you go. They had run a couple dogs on this already because that trail was already a little bit established.
At this point, I was more worried about the bacteria on those dead ducks than I was COVID.
Oh my gosh, that's why dog people aren't worried about COVID because we live through this on a regular. All right, now Tanner, come in.
Heel. Sit.
All right, I'm getting too much buffering right here. I got to see this.
Okay. Let me stop it then. I'll pull it
Because
back.
I mean, it's kind of it's freeze framing. It's not smooth right there.
Okay, I pulled it back. How about now?
Give me a second.
Heel. Heel. Sit. Sit. Sit.
I'm hearing more than I'm seeing. Hold on.
I'm gonna
Let me
stop
see.
it.
Don't stop it yet. I want to see. Did he? I couldn't tell. Did he? He didn't drop that bird that bad, did he?
No, and he didn't stick either.
Okay.
Heel. Heel.
Now we're going for the bird he didn't see. Correct.
Correct.
All right. Now this is a very telling thing. Did you hear what I said? We're going for the bird we didn't see. So in his mind, is he running a marker or blind?
He's running a blind.
Okay. So what's in reference in sequence from what you saw in these tests? Is the blind the first thing you do or the last?
The last.
Okay. Watch what he does with this bird when he comes back.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay.
Still back behind you. in front of that mountain on the right.
Okay.
Surely he's got it.
He ran around the mound and then he picked it up.
Okay. So he's on his way back now?
Yep.
Look for diversion.
Load for your diversion. I like that. Now, hit the pause, hit the pause, hit the pause. Did you see what happened right there? When you picked up the gun, what'd you have to do?
Yeah, it was not open. I broke every rule in the book.
And I know you heard it over and over. There's 3 basic components of this gun: the muzzle, the breech, and the safety. Safety is a mechanical device apt to fail. This is a safe gun. And they'd show you the gun with the breech open and safety on. And then they'd close the breech and say, this is an unsafe gun with the safety on and the breech closed. Then they'd open the gun back up and click the safety off and say, this is an unsafe gun with breech open and safety off. And if you do both of these, then that's a failure. So you got a gun safety violation, warning, whatever you want to call it, gun safety warning, on your very first trip to the line. At the Grand, that follows you. On your score sheet, they will put GSW at the top. And so that it will show up that you have a gun safety warning. You get one of those again, and that's your double up, and then you're out. Not only are you out, and the dog that you're running is out, but all the other dogs that you still have in, if you're a professional or a serious amateur, all the other dogs that you have in have to be run by someone else because you can no longer participate.
So what you're saying is GSW means dumbass?
Yes. Or what we call DAH, which is dumbass handler. So you see that on judges' sheets way too much.
So what you're saying is there's a chance.
You're saying there's a chance. Yes, very much. So when you open that gun, whenever you're at a test and a judge asks you to check your gun, they're not trying to get you. They're trying to prevent you from being gotten. Because if you walk off that line with that gun in that manner, they have no choice. And you would be, you say, okay, well, I'm a serious hunter and I never use a pump action. You would not believe the serious hunters that don't remember to do this. And if you always say, when you put the gun down, if you always say open and safe or breech open safety on, whatever's comfortable for you to say, if you will always say that when you put it down, the gun will always be safe. And even if it's not safe, the judge isn't going to look behind you because you had the wherewithal to say open and safe. And if you say that 99 times out of 100, one of the judges is going to tell you thank you for, that's just a courteous thing that they do. So, little tidbit, if you say open and safe when you put it down, you won't do that again.
Probably won't do that again. I may not ever run a test dog at the Grand.
I hope you do. Oh, I hope you do. All right, so we got a diversion coming back, but I don't even think, watching what I saw, I don't think Tanner even saw the diversion for a couple of reasons. I heard somebody in the background say, did you have it set on bottom or top? They were asking about how the winger was set. And the other reason I think that Tanner didn't see it is because Tanner thinks he ran a blind, which is the last bird he's going to pick up. And Tanner did what Tanner really likes to do. And he came back, he dropped that bird longer, he mouthed it longer, and you would have been out simply for what it took for him to give you the bird. So keep on rolling and let's analyze this behavior.
I mean, actually, when he broke, that would have been a blessing for me in the Grand because I wouldn't have had to go through all this other crap.
It wouldn't have felt like it was a blessing if you'd paid your
I'll see y'all next year. I hope y'all are getting a good kick out of this.
Here it comes. Take shoots it. Tanner says, see how he stopped? He never even saw the bird.
No,
He was
that
doing
might
the wrong thing. But this is where I really want you to pay attention, is when he gets up on this platform.
okay.
Heel.
Oh, I dropped it. Oh, yes. There you go. Get in there, Brandon. Get that good video footage. That right there, you can freeze frame that and make a T-shirt out of it. Jake and Tanner's relationship.
He got him. I think he got some breast meat on that one.
So here's the thing. Hit pause. You can never, ever, running Tanner in a competition, you make him sit down, you make him pick it up, and you make him give it to you. But the moment you pull, The moment you try to take it, you will never win. That is the game Tanner plays. That is what he was trying to get you to do, was trying to get you to pull. Because if you pull just once, then I can hold on to it. I can possess it. I can own this bird. That is what he wanted you to do. And like I said, that's what the two of you very well could overcome. That's why I ran him in a couple tests. One was to finish his title. I actually ran him, believe it or not, as test dog before I ran him in a competition because I wanted to see just how bad it was, because I never got to see it in training, not to the extent that he was going to show me. And I wanted to see what it was really going to look like in live action. So I figured it out. I even played when I was doing test dog. I experimented on when to try to take it. Reached in one time while he was mouthing it like that and tried to grab it. And he said, you could see it. He's like, hey, now we're playing. And I had to stop, back up, make him sit down and not touch it at all until he was ready to give it to me. Then I just placed my hand on it, told him to give, and he spit it right out. So you could not have got, at your expense, you could not have got a better education on what Tanner, his MO is, what he does. See, in your mind, you were thinking there's more birds to pick up, but in Tanner's mind, he wasn't certain there was. He only saw 2 of the 3 marks. He said, there's 2 marks. I'm running a blind. That means the last bird that I'm going to do, I ain't giving this one up. It's mine.
So Tanner, just so everybody knows, Tanner came with a cosmetic defect disclosure. I bought him at an outlet mall. And he's a Vortex jacket, baby.
He's not an Oakley. He was a Folkley.
Oh, my God. I love my dog. I don't care what y'all say about him.
Well, how many times have I told you the same thing that makes a dog good is the same thing that makes them bad?
That's right. I just tell people, so my dog's probably going to pick up more ducks than your dog will.
No doubt.
I'm not saying he'll give them back. I'm just saying he'll pick more up.
You'll definitely get them. He'll do a little tenderizing for the table. Now, you're having a handle here in the test. This is not a handle on a mark. A diversion is not a mark. It's a control bird. Now, you're handling. Oh, hit the ball. Oh, did you see that cast? Did you see that fantastic amateur cast that you gave with your hand not visible to the dog? Oh, my gosh.
Freaking up, Steven. I guess we got to go now.
Yeah, I bet you are. I'll call you and we'll cuss this thing out. Golly.
I hope everybody watching this is getting a really good kick out of this.
Gee whiz. Just makes us realize how far we got to come.
You having a
Version.
No, it's going long. Oh, short.
I honestly had no idea how stupid I looked here till it was over.
And so you're still naturally, you're trying to rush to grab that bird.
Thank you, Judge.
And
They're like, no, you got that blind to run.
yeah, thank you, Judge. So yeah. Well, I've been out 3 times already. I just didn't figure y'all needed to see that.
Here. Sit.
All right, Tanner, what you got? Running this pretty little blind. What was this blind in relation to the mark? Was it behind the gun?
Yes. At one point, somebody said, blow the damn whistle.
Yeah. So, was he supposed to go to the left of the gun or the right of the gun?
Right of the gun.
Okay, so it was under the arc of the fall then.
Correct.
Okay. We'll get to all this technical stuff that you're going, why are you saying these things? Yeah, we got plenty to cover. Did you ever blow the whistle?
Yeah, after someone told me to.
Oh, there we go. We're doing a classic hunt 'em up blind. You could have exhibited some of your great handling.
Man, I need a drink and I don't even smoke, and I feel like I need a cigarette.
Oh, we see him. I don't know how your handling's going, but he looks ready for the upland.
So our next podcast is going to be me we're going to teach Stephen how to run a camera.
So you failed the marks. You failed the blind. He broke. He stuck on a bird. You had a gun safety warning. Yeah, you're about ready for started.
I'm not ready for started.
You don't shoot a gun at started.
I can honestly tell you right now that I'm more relieved that this video's over than I was that this test was over when it happened.
I wish you'd have had some drone footage of this too. It'd have been great to get this multiple angles. But I still think, man, we could go back and do these full color prints on the shirt. You trying to take the bird from and him holding on to it. I mean, that's and see, you even failed to walk out. You went to leave the line and he went bailing off the platform into the water again.
Running tenor with a teal whistle. It was actually oh yeah, that was a teal whistle.
Yeah.
All right, I'm okay. I feel
Just think how bad it would have been 3 months ago.
I feel like I need a Valium.
You know, and this is the point where I like to point out, you know, my family, a lot of my extended family, they think that I play with dogs for a living. And I just say, yeah, y'all are right. Y'all are absolutely right.
Steve, no. It's
I really, you do need to put this in there because some of that video, it was too choppy to catch every little detail. You really do need to put that on the YouTube channel.
but I want to know why Steve and Brandon wants me to put it up on.
Well, there's one way you can find out.
I'll be like, you think Dumb and Dumber was funny? You ought to watch this.
Hey, well, that's what, you know, Steve made a comment earlier. I'm looking for it. He said HRC is so fun. I remember Steven heckling another handler about a football game at an Old South test. Everyone was laughing. It was in good fun. Definitely a family-like atmosphere. I promise you, I don't remember exactly what event that was because if you say I remember Steven picking on somebody, then that's not narrowing it down very much. But that being said, you know, Melissa Grant ran her first Grand. She passed. She was at my very first ladies handler seminar it was right after Darcy was born. So 2014, I think 2013, 2014. I think it's 2014 was the very first ladies handler seminar. We usually do that usually around February every year. So she has been taking that kind of abuse, you know, since 2014 at least. So she, you know, and that was her first time stepping on the line at the Grand, and she passed with flying colors. Mr. Lynn Holman, who nobody takes more chewing on a daily basis than Mr. Lynn. He comes and takes it on the chin like a champ, but he's got, you know, success to show for it. So it's you know, my teaching style may be harsh, it may be abrasive, and it may bring some people to tears. Isn't that right, Miss Melissa? There's times that it's tough, but I'm doing it out of love, and I'm doing it to make you a better handler. And it's just, truthfully, you know, dealing with people that, you know, especially at the beginning of my career, most of these people were old enough to be my parents. It got real awkward real fast. If I wasn't picking all the time and then something really, really bad happened and I'm chewing them about, do you realize how bad you just messed up, how you could have potentially messed this dog up, how your handling failed this dog? You know, you get that really awkward silence where I'm speaking to an adult like they're a child. So I just figured out if I did it all the time, it wasn't quite so it wasn't quite so awkward when it was serious.
Is a virtue, you know. But I mean, I want to say this about you know, you bring that up quite a bit, Stephen. I'm used to it because that's how my dad taught me with tough love. And I mean, yeah, that's embarrassing, but it's really not for me because A, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. B, that was the first time I never run a hunt test in my life. So I did that because I knew I would blow up. I didn't know I'd blow up that bad, but I knew I would blow up. But I really I was kind of curious to see how I would react, how I would feel. And I know y'all watch this and absorb this because, like you know, you're just talking about these other people. I documented the very first time I did this, and it's horrible. I get that. I wouldn't expect anything less from me at this point. But, 5 years from now or at some point in my life, I'm going to run a legitimate dog and a legitimate grand. And I hope that one day I can look back at this and go, this is how I started. And I had Stephen Durrance as my coach. I had all these people that were supporting me, like Jamie Moss and Miss Elaine and Miss Carol Cass, all these people that come here in support. And I know, y'all like listening to Stephen and learn from him, but I know y'all are very supportive of me too. And I really appreciate that. If I didn't know that from y'all, I wouldn't continue to come back here and be y'all's punching bag.
Hey, this is and everybody. The neat thing, in my opinion, about Hunt Test particular is it has a tendency to bring out the best in people, because how good you do with your dog has no effect or bearing on me and my dog. You doing well doesn't mean that my dogs are going to be less than or finish lower because yours finished higher. Everybody has a tendency to kind of bring everybody else up and cheer for everyone, and that's a really fun part of the environment. So everybody that's laughing along and watching, and they're also seeing a large part of themselves in you, because they're actively experiencing it, or they've been there, done that. And if you haven't been embarrassed by a dog, you just simply haven't been doing it long enough. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
And all these people they're all sweating. They're all wiping the sweat off their necks right now because they've been where I just was at one time or another.
Absolutely. Well, and a lot of people, in truth, haven't been where you have been, as far as they haven't been to a grand yet. They haven't run at a grand level. And even though you weren't competing proper, you were getting a whole bait of the atmosphere of what it takes and understanding, literally you failed at every component of the test, from gun handling to walk-in to marks to bird handling to the blind.
I even wiped my mouth after I handled those ducks.
So, I mean, look, you get, there's nowhere I would say that there's no lower place you could be, but I've been teaching you for 3 months. I know where you come from. There's definitely, I mean, the difference is you didn't start at a low level. You started at the highest level of being critiqued, and that can only make you better. It's just like growing up. I'm the youngest of three boys, and my brothers are 10 and 12 years older than I am. And I never competed against my peers. I always competed against my brothers. And it was a stacked deck from the start. But, as I was coming up as a child, when I actually started competing against kids my age, it was a breeze, because they weren't who I was trying to be anyway. So it was, I had my goal set from the start on something that was probably unattainable for the most part of my life, until I, physically caught up with them. But, that was kind of in the same vein of what you're doing. You jumped out there and grabbed the biggest bull by the horns and said, I can hold on to this one.
I want to trade my dog in for a set of golf clubs.
Oh, don't do that. Oh my gosh, don't do that.
I'm totally kidding. I mean, look at all the comments that are coming in right now, and that's what I'm talking about. You guys are extremely supportive. I'm not going to sit here and say, man, I really appreciate that, because I do, but that's not what this is about for me. But I do appreciate that support, and it's really eye-opening as to what kind of people you all are, and I feel safe around y'all.
Well, and the other thing, you can remind everyone here, in a month, you'll be killing more ducks than everybody.
There's no question, and I don't brag about it, but I will. We should. One of the things that I'm going to take from all this too is going to the SRS Crown next week. Is that when it is? Or 8 days from now, whenever it is. I'll be there filming, and I'll be looking. I've filmed probably, 15 SRS Crown championships now. And I know there's debate, or people would debate it or argue or whatever it is, but in my eyes, from what little I know about this whole game, the SRS Crown Championship is like, these are the most well-rounded retrievers in the world. I mean, these are the stud dogs of the world. And I get to go into it this year having had 3 or 4 months of training with Steven. I've had the experience 2 full days of the Grand, and now I get to go film the SRS Crown Championship, and I'm going to have a completely different perspective on it because of what little I know now. It's more than I did beforehand. And again, I've been to 15 Crown Championships in my life and watched all these dogs, compete and fail and succeed. And now it's going to be a completely different experience for me. So, man, I'm exhausted.
It's a lot. There's a lot to this playing with dogs gig, but it keeps, and the thing to remember too, I can't say this loud enough. You really don't understand something until you can teach it. My mom was a teacher for 46 years, and she really hammered that home. You really don't understand something fully until you can teach it. And I'm actively learning every day. Teaching you makes me better. Heckling all these other people mercilessly makes me better. I'm learning so much more about dog behavior, so much more about dog human interaction. I mean, there's so many different things that I pick up on, and just trying to have a better understanding of how dogs understand the world. I gain all these things through teaching other people, not just training dogs. So there's a huge component in it for me as well. It's a lot of fun to get to interact with people and get to interact with dogs. But I'm steady learning, and when I quit learning, I'd like to say that when I quit learning, I'm going to quit being a dog person. That you obviously never know what's going to happen when until you're in that situation. But I dearly hope that day never comes for me. That I'm always learning and trying to be better at what I do.
I'm reading Kyle Labonte's comment. He said, I had a dog take off after a rabbit and out of sight for 5 minutes at a master test.
Hey, it sure enough happens. I mean, you see people have to hop on 4-wheelers and go catch dogs. You see dogs disappear. You see dogs never pick up a bird. You see dogs absolutely smash the test and then break on the honor. I mean, eat birds. I mean, it's crazy. I had a fantastic dog who went on to be a Grand Hunt Retriever champion, eat the diversion bird at a Grand after she killed the test. I mean, couldn't have done it any better. And all she had to do was go pick up the diversion and went out there. And you talked about that no here and that harsh stuff and everything. I was one of them people at that point, because after I saw her put her foot on it and I realized what was going on, I no here, and I started running out there, and the judge was like, look out, Steven. I'm like, hey, I'm not trying to be bad. I'm just trying to keep her from eating this bird. And so she came in without the bird, and I knew I had done the right thing because I was watching over my shoulder, and the judge walked out there, and he had to bend over and pick up 3 different times on the same bird.
2 breaths and a carcass.
She was sure enough doing it to it on that. I mean, it was done. She had killed the test, and I mean, went out there and absolutely ripped that bird to pieces. And that's why, I tell everybody when hopefully a long time from now I'm standing in front of Jesus, one of the first things I'm going to ask him is what goes on inside the mind of a golden female, because they're different and they have different motivations, and then they do hateful things like where they kill the test and then eat the bird.
That was a female golden?
It was a female golden. And like I said, she went on to be a Grand Hunt Retriever champion, but it wasn't at that Grand.
Wow. Well, man, again, I really, honestly, Steven, after that experience and having to relive it tonight, I really, really do appreciate your time. I'm so glad that we have put this together. I know I'm, just getting started, and we have a long way to go. And, this is not just teaching me a lot about training a retriever, but this is teaching me a lot about life And I really appreciate you. I appreciate all the people that come here and watch the video. I'm glad it's over for tonight.
Hey, don't forget to post that on YouTube, and maybe go even ahead and even post the other one that you got, because I haven't seen that one yet.
I'll send it to you first. It's better. I'm not saying it's better.
Yeah, I'll be the judge of that. This is good stuff. I'm telling you, this is invaluable. It's going to make you a better. It's going to make you a better dog owner. It's going to make you a better dog trainer. It's going to make your hunting season more enjoyable, which is definitely something that I want to touch on some before we get into hunting season. We need to touch on preparation for hunting season. You know, not just, we have gravitated towards the hardcore competition side of things, and we do not need to forget about those who are ready to take their dog hunting for the first time this year, or trying to get the old boy off the couch to make one more year of it. All those things that we might want to touch on a little bit before we get too far down the road, because hunting season is upon us.
It is. It is. And the two things I'll never forget at any sort of hunt test will be a whistle and my own duck call.
You say that. You say that. That happens.
I got a duck call and a whistle in my truck now. It's in my glove box.
I hear you.
Hey, man. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everybody. Next week we'll be off because Stephen and I will both be at the Crown Championship in Huntsville, Alabama. Look forward to seeing you there and your family. I will not be running a test dog. I can promise. No, man.
Come on.
No. I mean, I would. I probably would, but anyhow.
You can't stick.
I will say too that I learn. I do put myself out there because I know I'm going to get a lot more lesson learned from that than I am by being clammed up or a turtle in my shell. If I don't put myself out there, I can't ask the right questions or I can't get the right responses. So I'm learning a lot. Thank you, guys. We'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Good luck.
Appreciate y'all. Lots of fun.
Bye. Whew.